Hey, y'all, welcome back to another legislation breakdown. The Democrats think they're slick with this particular bill here, and we'll get into it, but I'm going to put this in context for you guys a second. With the whole racism thing, anti-Semitism thing been going around for like the last 2-3 months with Ilhan Omar and, all that nonsense going on. We know Ilhan Omar introduced a bill that was basically BDS, right? To support the BDS movement, etc. And we know a lot of people on the right was completely appalled about it. Some on the left was appalled about it, but they just mummed a word, right? So there's another bill that has come through, okay, ahead of hers to kind of head her off at the pass. And it sounds great. It sounds great. But when you hear the implications to America with this bill, I think every last God-fearing American will be appalled when they see what is going on with this bill and the money that's being wasted with this bill. So let's go ahead and let's get into it. You'll see here that the name of the bill is House Resolution 246, opposing efforts to legitimize the state of Israel and the global boycott, divestment, and sanctions movement targeting Israel, which is the BDS. It was passed in the House. As you can see, we'll pull up the roll call vote for you guys so you can see who voted for this bill. Here we go. I'm just going to get that so you guys can get a look at who voted. This resolution was voted 209 in the yay, 189. I was going to say 209 the Democrats and 189 by the Republicans, and 16 nays by Democrats and 1 by Republican. And that one lone Republican is Thomas Massey. And after reading this bill and understanding what was happening, I get exactly why he did it. And it makes complete, perfect sense why he did. And what's surprising too, Rashida Tlaib even voted against it. But we know why. We know why exactly. Why they voted against that bill. And Omar did too, because they want to be able to boycott Israel. But I'm going to get into that in a second, right? So let's get into the bill here real quick. House Resolution 246. The words basically, whereas the democratic Jewish state of Israel is a key ally and strategic partner of the United States, whereas since Israel's founding in 1948, Congress has repeatedly expressed our nation's unwavering commitment to the security of Israel as a Jewish and democratic state, whereas it is a hallmark of American democracy for citizens to petition the United States government in favor of or against United States foreign policy, whereas the United States Constitution protects the rights of United States citizens to articulate political views, including with respect to the policies of the United States or foreign governments, whereas American policy has long sought to bring peace to the Middle East and recognize that both the Israeli and Palestinian people should be able to live in safe and sovereign states, free from fear and violence with mutual recognition, whereas support for peace between the Israelis and Palestinians has long-standing bipartisan support in Congress, where it is the long-standing policy of the United States that a peaceful resolution to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict should come through direct negotiations between the government of Israel and the Palestinian Authority, or the PLO as it used to be called, with the support of countries in the region and around the world. Whereas cooperation between Israel and the United States of great importance, especially in the context of rising anti-Semitism, authoritarianism, and security problems in Europe, the Middle East, and North Africa. Whereas the global boycott, divestment, and sanctions movement, the BDS movement, targeting Israel is a campaign that does not favor a two-state resolution and that seeks to exclude the state of Israel and the Israeli people from the economic, cultural, and academic life of the rest of the world. Whereas the global boycott, divestment, and sanctions movement is one of the several recent political movements that undermines the possibility of a negotiated solution to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict by demanding concessions of one party alone and encouraging the Palestinians to reject negotiations in favor of international pressure. Whereas the founder of the Global BDS Movement, Omar Burgadi, has denied the right of the Jewish people in their homeland, saying we oppose a Jewish state in any part of Palestine. No Palestinian, rational Palestinian, not a sellout Palestinian, will ever accept a Jewish state in Palestine. Whereas the global BDS movement targets not only the Israeli government, but also Israeli academic, cultural, and civil society institutions, as well as individual Israeli citizens of all political persuasions, religions, and ethnicities, and in some cases, even Jews of other nationalities who support Israel. Whereas the global BDS movement does not recognize many of its supporters explicitly deny the right of the Jewish people to national self-determination. Whereas university-based global BDS efforts violate the core goals of the university and global cultural development, which thrive on free and open exchange and debate, and in some cases leads to the intimidation and harassment of Jewish students and others who support Israel. Whereas the global BDS movement promotes principles of collective guilt, mass punishment, group isolation, which are destructive of prospects for progress towards peace and a two-state resolution, whereas boycotts and similar tools aimed at promoting racial justice and social change have been used effectively in the United States, South Africa, and other parts of the world. And whereas, in contrast to protest movements that have sought racial justice and social change, the global boycott, divestment, and sanctions movement targeting Israel is not about promoting coexistence, civil rights, and political reconciliation, but about questioning and undermining the very legitimacy of the country and its people. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the House of Representatives opposes the global boycott, divestment, and sanctions movement, BDS, targeting Israel, including efforts to target United States companies that are engaged in commercial activities that are under legal United States law, and all efforts to delegitimize the state of Israel, urging Israelis and Palestinians to return to direct negotiations as the only way to achieve an end to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, affirms the constitutional right of the United States citizens to free speech, including the right to protest or criticize policies of the United States or foreign governments, supports the full implementation of the United States-Israeli Strategic Partnership Act of 2014, Public Law 1113, 296, 128, Statute 475, and new efforts to enhance government-wide coordinated United States-Israeli scientific technological cooperation in civilian areas, such as with respect to energy, water, agriculture, alternative fuel technology, civilian space technology, and security in order to counter the effects of actions to boycott, divest from, or sanction Israel, and reaffirms its strong support for a negotiated solution to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict resulting in two states, a democratic Jewish state of Israel and a viable democratic Palestinian state living side by side in peace, security, and mutual recognition. Now that we've gotten through that whole bill, you kind of get a gist of what's happening here. But you saw there's a couple of things I highlighted here. One, supports the full implementation of the United States-Israel Strategic Partnership Act of 2014. Now, this is interesting because a lot of people that don't know what this bill is, what it does, I'm going to go ahead and run over to that law that was just passed. I'm going to run over to it real quick. It's H.R. 938. United States-Israeli Strategic Partnership Plan of 2014 looks innocent, right? Okay. But let's get down to the meat and potatoes. There's something much deeper here that people aren't noticing. And this is the summary. Like I said, you can find it on congress.gov, H.R. 938. And you remember, this is during the 113th Congress. So keep that in mind when you're looking. But we get down into the bill here, and here's something that's quite interesting. Title 2 of this bill Section 201 amends the Emergency Independence and Security Act of 2007 with respect to the United States-Israeli energy cooperation to authorize the Secretary of Energy to make grants to eligible applicants, including projects involving joint ventures, the United States and Israeli governments, to promote natural gas energy, including natural gas products, conducted by or in conjunction with the United States Israeli Binational Science Foundation, the United States Israeli Binational Industrial Research and Development Foundation, and the United States Israel Science and Technology Foundation in improvements, of energy efficiency and the performance of water technologies through research, development, and water desalination, wastewater treatment, and reclamation and other water treatment plants. It also authorizes the Secretary of Energy to enter into cooperative agreements supporting and enhancing dialogue and planning involving international partnerships between DOE, including its national laboratories, and the government of Israel and its ministries. But here's the kicker right here. It limits the federal's share of costs under such agreements to 50%. So we're footing half the bill for this, right? This is what this was talking about, the full implementation. The full implementation of that act. I just pulled out the piece that was majorly important to show you that full implementation of this bill, of that bill, is going to, we have to fork out 50% of whatever Israel wants to do. They just come to the door and ask for what they want. We have to give it to them up to 50%. I wonder how many Republicans actually read this. How many Republicans actually read this? This is what baffles me about this whole thing. How many Republicans actually read this? I mean, we're going to spend taxpayer dollars to subsidize green energy for another country when we're already $22 trillion in debt. You see what I'm getting at here? This right here. While everybody, and I have to say, I'll say it after the fact, but I got something to say about stuff like this, right? We're already in debt and we're going to subsidize their green research. So is Israel our Green New Deal guinea pigs? Is this what this is looking like? I think it does. Honestly, I think it does. That's exactly what it looks like. We're going to implement the Green New Deal over here. We're going to fund it and see how it turns out. If it turns out great, guess what? Israel's doing it. Since they're our partner, we're doing it too. See where this is going? The other part that's disturbing to me too is it reaffirms the strong support of a negotiated solution to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict resulting in two states, right? A democratic Jewish state of Israel and a viable democratic Palestinian state living along side by side with each other. I think that's pretty. Here's where I'm at with it. First of all, we shouldn't be dictating what the U.S. best interests are to Israel. That's first and foremost. That's their sovereignty. We shouldn't be even in the middle of this. You hear what I'm saying? We should let Israel do what's best for Israel. Congress should just stay out of interfering with their own decisions on foreign and domestic policy. Everybody talks about America being the bully and the imperialist. Well, this particular bill is basically imposing the imperialism that people are going against. But people don't pay attention. They just sign off on things because it sounds good. And I'm thankful for the only Republican Thomas Massey to vote against this bill, because when I read this and I read through what was going on, he probably had the same sentiment I did when it comes to when it came to that bill. It's like, whoa, wait a minute. Why are we dictating policy in other sovereign nation states? Why are we doing this? Right? And the other thing, before I close with this, I cannot support a federal government wanting to condemn any type of private boycott, regardless of whether or not the boycott is based in bad motives or not. This is not the matters of the federal government. Right? This basically boils down to a 10th Amendment thing. The states and the people need to decide whatever. The federal government has no head in this. Zero head in this at all. They have no stake in this. Because what are we doing now? Right? We're basically saying, okay, it's not okay to boycott Israel, or it's not okay to be anti-Semitic, even though it's horrible and it's unmoral, but it's a person's First Amendment right to be anti-Semitic if they want to be. They want to be anti-Israel, that's their First Amendment right. This bill is basically setting a precedent. Hey, you can't be, they're censoring speech, censoring expression, right? And the federal government is supposed to protect those exact same values. Okay? It only makes perfect sense when it comes to this issue. I hope everybody, and you've seen the roll call vote on the video. If not, just run back or just look up House Resolution 246 and go to the roll call vote and see if your House rep voted yea or nay, and give them a call and be like, hey, do you understand what was in that bill? And get answers why they voted the way they did. Because we have to stop electing people that don't pay attention to what they're voting for and really breaking down what they're voting for. We really do. We need to really, really, really evaluate the people that we are putting in those seats in the halls of Congress. Now, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you think this video is informative, please comment, rate, and share on all your social media platforms. Hit that subscribe button that you'll see somewhere coming up here somewhere, wherever. And please turn your friends on to this. Have them subscribe also to get updated on new content by clicking that little notify up there too. And y'all, until next time, y'all be blessed. God bless America, and let's save liberty together.